Think about the last time you bought a pen. Chances are you didn't. You probably found it in a drawer, borrowed it from a bank counter, or pulled it out from the bottom of a bag. The modern ballpoint pen is so cheap and abundant that we constantly lose them without a second thought. But for almost the entirety of human history, recording a single thought on paper was a delicate, incredibly messy ordeal. To maintain his massive correspondence, Thomas Jefferson literally had to raise a flock of white geese at Monticello just to supply himself with feathers. These quill pens degraded fast. The natural fibers wore down after just a week of use, forcing writers to constantly carve and shape the tips with a knife to keep them functional. The shift to metal nibs and fountain pens helped the durability problem, but they relied on a highly fluid, water-based India ink. It flowed unevenly, pooled on the paper, and required careful drying time to avoid smudging everywhere. As the world sped up, these tools couldn't keep pace. If you took one of these early liquid ink pens onto a newly invented passenger airplane, the drop in atmospheric pressure would force the fluid right out of the barrel, flooding your pocket with ink. Creating a truly portable writing tool required a complete reinvention of fluid dynamics and microscopic engineering. The root of the problem is inside the ink reservoir. Expose a liquid, water-based dye to the air, and it either evaporates and clogs the pen or flows out entirely. In the 1930s, a journalist named Laszlo Biro noticed a sharp contrast in his daily work. While his fountain pen constantly smeared, the ink used to print the newspapers he wrote for dried almost instantly. Industrial printing presses use a different formula. Instead of water, the pigment is suspended in oils and fatty acids, creating a thick, highly viscous paste. This paste was perfect for preventing leaks and resisting evaporation. But there was a mechanical catch. It was far too thick and sticky to flow down the narrow channel of a traditional split nib. Biro had the right chemistry, but he needed a completely new delivery mechanism to force that stubborn paste onto the page. The answer lies at the very tip of the modern pen. If you zoom in close enough, it looks less like a writing instrument and more like heavy industrial machinery. This diagram shows the cross-section of a ballpoint tip. A microscopic sphere made of brass, steel, or tungsten carbide is trapped inside a machined metal socket. The clearance between the ball and the wall is razor thin, just enough to let the sphere spin freely without falling out. When the pen isn't moving, this sphere acts as a continuous cap. It physically blocks the bottom of the reservoir, stopping air from creeping up and drying out the oil-based ink inside. As you press the pen to paper and move your hand, friction forces the ball to roll. Gravity feeds the sticky ink down onto the top half of the sphere, which rotates downward, transferring a precise layer of paste directly onto the page. Pushing this thick paste requires physical effort from the user. It's why writing with a ballpoint requires you to apply firm pressure and hold the barrel at a steep 60 to 80 degree angle to keep the ball turning against the paper. By relying on a rotating metal sphere to pull the paste out of the reservoir, we finally bypassed the physical limits of liquid ink entirely. With the ink perfectly secured at the bottom, manufacturers could tackle the other end of the pen, eliminating the need for a separate, easily lost cap. This exploded view shows the thrust device, the internal machinery responsible for that iconic click. It relies on a push button, a rotating cam, and a tension spring at the base. Pushing the top button drives the internal cam downward against the spring, sliding the ink cartridge down the barrel to expose the tip. As it moves down, the cam is forced to rotate slightly along angled internal tracks. When you release the button, those grooves catch the cam, locking the cartridge securely in the extended writing position. That simple sequence of compression and rotation freed the pen from the desk, turning it into a rugged tool that you can operate with one hand and throw right into your pocket. The combination of a rolling ball seal, viscous oil paste, and a retractable barrel made the messy rituals of inkwells, blotters, and stained clothing obsolete. In fact, the mechanics are so reliable that with a little added pressure in the cartridge, the system works flawlessly even in the extreme vacuum of outer space. Tools like the Fisher Space Pen represent the absolute limits of this engineering, fully mastering the fluid dynamics of that sticky paste. The next time you pick up a disposable pen, look closer at the tip. That tiny rolling mechanism is a precisely calibrated fluid dynamics engine. built to instantly capture human thought.